wouldn't make it weird, honey. My hands go exactly where the patient needs them. My fingers tightened around the glass of water I was carrying until I thought it might shatter. Standing in the archway of our bedroom, I watched a scene that made my blood run cold. There was Olivia, dressed in spotless navy scrubs, her body angled possessively over my husband's. Ethan was propped up against the headboard, his leg wrapped in a heavy brace from thigh to ankle, looking fragile and pale. Her hand was pressed flat against his bare chest, her fingers splayed out like she was claiming territory. My mother-in-law, Patricia, was seated in the corner, a knowing grin plastered on her face. She looked like a cat that had just swallowed a whole flock of canaries. A lump formed in my throat. My heart hammered against my ribs. Olivia rotated her head slowly, her eyes meeting mine. She didn't retreat. Her smile was a slow, deliberate curve, a silent message that I was the one being foolish, the one reading too much into a harmless gesture. The air was thick with antiseptic and a sweet, cloying perfume that wasn't mine. Ethan's eyes darted towards me, full of guilt, but he remained frozen, accepting her touch as if it were his due. The only sounds were the hum of the air conditioner and the faint ticking of the hallway clock. The mundane noises of our home underscored the surreal violation happening in our bedroom. That hand, resting so casually on my husband's heart, would become the catalyst for a war no one saw coming. Let me tell you about the woman I was before that moment. My name is Ava Santoro, 33 years old, raised in the privileged suburbs north of Chicago. I'm the only child of Frank Santoro, who owns Santoro Development Group, a powerhouse in commercial real estate across the Midwest. I lost my mom to cancer when I was 10, leaving me to be shaped by my father and a series of etiquette coaches who drilled one lesson into me. The Santoro name is a brand. You are its most visible product. I met Ethan Walsh at a charity gala my father sponsored for up-and-coming architects. Ethan was brilliant, a visionary in eco-friendly design with a portfolio that stopped conversations. He was handsome and articulate, with an easy smile and an air of humble confidence. He came from a modest background. His mother, Patricia, was a widow who had chased get-rich-quick schemes her whole life, leaving a trail of debt and resentment. Looking back, I realize our first meeting was no accident. Over the next year, our families engineered our relationship like a corporate merger. My father saw Ethan as the perfect creative director for his new luxury division. Patricia, on the other hand, saw me as her personal bailout fund. I won't lie, I was drawn to Ethan. There was genuine affection, a spark I hoped would grow into a lasting flame. But deep down, I knew the truth. Our marriage was a contract signed with a wedding cake. Our wedding was a society column fixture. Patricia beamed in every picture, but her eyes were always calculating, assessing my worth. At Sunday dinners, she'd drop comments like, "Ethan is such a catch. You're so lucky he finds your ambition charming." The subtext was always the same. I was the lucky one. If someone had told me then that I'd be a stranger in my own home, watching another woman play wife to my husband, I'd have laughed in their face. But that was before the accident. Let me paint the full picture. After Ethan's car accident, a shattered femur and a nasty concussion, the doctors ordered in-home nursing care. We converted our guest room into a recovery suite. It seemed logical. Patricia, conveniently, knew the perfect candidate. Olivia Marks, she announced, her voice syrupy with praise. A former trauma nurse at Northwestern Memorial, an expert in orthopedics. What Patricia conveniently left out was that Olivia had been Ethan's college sweetheart. I discovered that little detail later. That afternoon, I was in the kitchen, meticulously arranging Ethan's pills when I heard laughter floating from his room. Patricia's throaty chuckle mixed with Olivia's light, musical giggle and Ethan's low murmur. The intimacy of it made me hesitate at the door. When I pushed it open, I saw them. Olivia was leaning over Ethan, her body positioned to perfection. Her scrubs were tailored, hugging her curves. The top of Ethan's gown had slipped, revealing his chest, and her hand was there, thumb tracing small circles, a gesture that was part medical, part deeply personal. The line between professional care and something else had been deliberately erased. "Olivia," I said, my voice calm despite the storm inside me. "What are you doing?" She turned with theatrical slowness, her gaze a slow inventory of my outfit. Her smile never faltered. "I wouldn't make it weird, honey." My hands go exactly where the patient needs them. Her hand stayed put, a flag planted on conquered soil. Ethan shifted, a flicker of discomfort, but he said nothing. He was caught in the middle, a passive observer. Patricia jumped in before I could speak. For goodness sake, Ava, your husband is laid up and you're acting jealous. You should be thanking Olivia for her dedication. The room spun. I was bringing medicine to my own husband and I was the villain. Do nurses usually touch patients? Like that? My voice was smaller than I intended. Olivia's laugh was airy. Gowns shift, sweetie. I'm just maintaining his dignity. You should see what we handle in the ICU. This is nothing. I placed the glass of water on the dresser with deliberate care, my hands steady, and walked out, their voices a fatting buzz. But that phrase echoed in my mind, a perfect distillation of the poison being injected into my marriage. My hands go exactly where the patient needs them. I knew then that nothing would ever be simple again. Life settled into a new, insidious rhythm, one that slowly erased me from my own existence. I still went to work, running the interior design branch of my father's company. It was my anchor. But every evening, I came home to find that every intimate task of caring for my husband had been co-opted. Olivia had seeped into the cracks of our life. She knew Ethan's coffee order, his pillow arrangement, the exact way he liked his blankets tucked. She'd memorized his medication schedule better than I had, the person who created it, and Patricia was there to witness every comparison. See, Ava, Olivia remembered Ethan hates lukewarm water unlike the tepid glass you always bring. Her voice would ring out from the bedroom, ensuring I heard. She pays attention to the little things. The worst were Olivia's carefully crafted barbs, delivered with fake innocence. He only takes his pills when I coax him, she'd say, smoothing his blanket. I guess old habits die hard. I remember how to handle him from when we were together. Things in the house started to shift. A different brand of tea appeared in the cupboard, Olivia's favorite. The living room carried the faint ghost of her perfume. The thermostat was set 2 degrees lower. My home was being colonized piece by piece. Ethan changed, too. He'd wake from a medicated nap calling for Liv, not me. When I tried to help with his exercises, he'd push me away. You don't get it, Ava. You're always so capable. Olivia knows how to be gentle. You're just too strong. Too strong. As if my competence was a character flaw, I tried to convince myself I was paranoid. But alone at night in the guest room, I'd moved there at Patricia's suggestion to give Ethan space to heal. I felt the truth solidify. I was being replaced, not just as a caregiver, but as his partner. One night, Ethan's phone buzzed on the nightstand while he slept. I glanced at it. A message from Olivia. Sleep tight. I miss the feel of taking care of you. That wasn't a nursing note. That was intimacy. And I knew this hadn't been professional for a long time. I never thought I'd be that wife, the one who snoops. But when your marriage is dissolving in front of you, desperation takes over. One afternoon, Ethan was in a deep, medicated sleep. Olivia had gone to pick up a prescription and Patricia was out. The house was silent. His phone was on the nightstand, unlocked. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The message thread between Ethan and Olivia went back months, before the accident. My eyes scanned message after message, each one a hammer blow. Ethan, Ava is just so put together. Sometimes I feel like another one of her projects. I feel invisible. Olivia, you're not invisible to me, Ethan. You never were. With me, you can just be yourself. You don't have to perform. Ethan, I miss that. I miss feeling like I can just fall apart. Olivia, then fall apart with me. I'll be there to catch you. Nothing explicitly sexual, but an intimacy that was 1,000 times worse. He was giving her his soul, the parts he'd stopped sharing with me, but the real knife was in another thread. Messages between Patricia and Olivia exchanged right before the accident. Patricia, just keep making yourself essential. If Ava gets fed up and walks, you'll be right there to step in. My son needs a woman who makes him feel strong, not one who makes him feel managed. Olivia, don't worry, Patricia. I know exactly how to handle him. Ava won't know what hit her until it's too late. I sat there in the dim light, listening to my husband breathe, and felt something fundamental inside me calcify. It was a setup. An orchestrated campaign to push me out so I'd be the villain. The cold, career-driven wife who abandoned her injured husband. If I left now, I'd be crucified. The society pages would shred me. My father's business network would be tainted by the scandal. I'd be branded a heartless woman. But if I stayed silent and swallowed it, I'd become a ghost, watching another woman take my life. I looked at Ethan's sleeping face. If I fight, I lose. If I fold, I lose, so I have to change the game entirely. A plan began to form, cold and clear. You want me to be the strong one? Fine. You're about to learn that true strength isn't about enduring. It's about knowing when to burn the house down. I've always been good at controlling my emotions. My father's first rule of business, never let them see you bleed. Now I put on the performance of my life. The next morning, I came downstairs looking genuinely wrecked. I'd stayed up all night to make the dark circles real. I stumbled in the kitchen, catching myself on the counter. Patricia looked up from her tea. "Ava, are you all right?" I pressed a hand to my forehead. "Just dizzy, the stress, I guess." I let my voice crack. Vulnerability. That's what they wanted, so I'd give them an Oscar-worthy performance. By afternoon, I staged a collapse in the hallway. Nothing dramatic, just a slow slide down the wall, looking pale and overwhelmed. Patricia found me and switched into concerned mode. "This is too much for you," she said, but her eyes were gleaming. "You need to rest, dear. Why don't you spend a few days at your father's? Olivia and I can manage Ethan perfectly." I nodded weakly. "Maybe you're right, I can't do this anymore." "Of course you can't," she soothed. "You go, we'll hold down the fort." But I didn't go to my father's, I went to work. The real work. I called Marco, my father's most trusted project manager. "I need the basement of my house converted into a professional physical therapy studio, full equipment, parallel bars, the works, and I need it done quietly while I'm away." "Why the secrecy, Ava?" "Because every single invoice, every piece of equipment is going to be billed through Ethan Walsh Architecture. It's going to be a community outreach project, very public, very photogenic." Marco's face broke into a slow grin. "So if anything goes wrong down there, it's on his professional reputation." "Exactly." Next, I called an old friend, Dr. Julian Ross, a top physical therapist at Rush University Medical Center. "Julian, I need an independent evaluation of my husband's home care. Completely official. I'm worried about the quality of treatment." "Ava, what aren't you telling me?" "Just come and see." The pieces were falling into place. Patricia thought I'd retreated in defeat. Olivia thought she'd won. But I was silently rebuilding the battlefield, turning my home into a place where every mistake they made would be documented and attached to Ethan's career. Dr. Julian Ross arrived on a Thursday. I introduced him to Patricia and Olivia as a family friend doing a courtesy check. He was all charm, Patricia gushed. "We're taking such good care of him. Olivia is a gem. Used to work at Northwestern, you know." Olivia performed flawlessly. She walked him through the med schedule, the PT regimen, showed him her detailed logs. Everything looked perfect. After the tour, they left us alone in the new therapy room, supposedly to prepare lunch. Julian's expression shifted the second they were gone. "Ava, we need to talk about the pain meds." My heart rate spiked. "What about them?" "The oxycodone dosage. It's not technically wrong, but it's on the very high end for this stage of recovery. The tapering schedule is far too slow." He pulled out his tablet, showing me the guidelines. "She should be reducing it much more aggressively. Instead, she's maintaining him at a level that's practically guaranteeing dependency." Dependency. The word hung in the air. It kept him reliant on the meds, slowed his healing, and made him psychologically dependent on the person administering them. Julian's eyes were serious. "It's not malpractice, but it's deeply unethical. Any board would flag this." I recorded our entire conversation. 3 days later, I had his official medical report in a sealed envelope. I sat across from Patricia at the kitchen table. I slid the envelope to her. "What's this?" she asked, suspicious. "A medical evaluation. It seems Olivia's pain management protocol is questionable. Nothing criminal, but imagine if it got out that you knowingly let your son be overmedicated to keep your hand-picked nurse employed. Your book club friends would be fascinated." Patricia's face drained of color. "You wouldn't dare." "Dare to tell the truth. The Walsh name in architectural circles would be ruined. All those clients who value integrity." I wasn't threatening her with the law. I was threatening her with social annihilation. "What do you want?" she whispered. "I want you to think about whether keeping Olivia in this house is worth your son's entire reputation. Because if this continues and it comes out, and these things always come out, Patricia, you'll be blamed for enabling it." I left the report on the table. For the next week, I played a role. Warm, understanding, almost sisterly towards Olivia. "I'm sorry I've been so tense," I told her one morning, handing her coffee. "You've been amazing with Ethan. I should have said it sooner." Her guard dropped. Patricia watched with visible relief. They thought I'd surrendered. A few days later, I gave Olivia a gift, a box containing a pair of high-end nursing clogs, the kind that cost over $200. "Elena, these are too much. You're on your feet all day." "You deserve the best." She actually hugged me. I hugged her back, hiding my smile. What Olivia didn't know was that I'd slipped a small GPS tracker into the sole of the right shoe before wrapping them. They were my gift, my property. I had every right to track them. I didn't care about her movements in my house. I wanted to know where else she went. The data was revealing. 3 times a week, the shoes would be stationary for hours in the parking garage of Northwestern Memorial Hospital, not inside. The garage, always late evening. A few calls to a contact in hospital administration revealed something interesting. A married cardiologist, Dr. Alistair Finch, had been acting suspiciously lately. His wife had confronted him about texts from an unknown number. I didn't need to dig deeper. I just had to wait. Meanwhile, I had Julian's concerns about the medication protocol anonymously forwarded to the nursing agency that employed Olivia, framed as a best practices inquiry. They promised a review, and the new therapy room was complete with a bronze plaque. The Ethan Walsh Rehabilitation Suite, a demonstration of accessible design by Walsh Architecture. His name was now publicly tied to everything in our home. If scandal struck, it would strike him first. One evening, I saw the GPS dot in the BMC garage suddenly start moving erratically, then stopping, then circling. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Altercation at Northwestern Memorial parking garage. Police called to domestic disturbance. I set my phone down and allowed myself a small smile. I don't need to fight my own battles. Somewhere in this city, another wronged wife was doing it for me. The video was all over the nursing forums within a day. Shaky cell phone footage from behind a pillar, but the audio was perfect. A well-dressed woman, Dr. Finch's wife, was blocking Olivia's car. Her voice echoed in the concrete garage. "Did you really think you were special? You're just another nurse who thinks proximity to a doctor makes you important." Olivia's reply was faint, but one line came through. "You don't understand. I only touch where I need to." "Is that what you tell them all?" Mrs. Finch's laugh was bitter. "The other wife from Mass General heard the same thing. How many families are you going to destroy?" The video cut out, but the damage was done. The nursing agency put Olivia on leave. The state nursing board opened an inquiry. Nothing criminal, but her reputation was permanently tarnished. And then the real dominoes began to fall. Ethan's firm started losing clients. One called to cancel a major contract, citing concerns about professional boundaries. Word travels fast in Chicago's business circles. Patricia came to me ashen. "Ava, you have to stop this. If it gets worse, it'll hurt your father's company too." "Will it?" I asked calmly. "Dad's company hired Ethan's firm. If that firm has a credibility problem, Dad will have to distance himself to protect his investors." The implication was clear. Only Ethan would burn. "You planned this," she whispered. "All of it." "I planned nothing. I just stopped looking the other way." Consequences belong to the people who earned them. Ethan called me to his bedside that night. He looked diminished. "Ava, I'm sorry, the meds, they messed with my head. You were clear-headed enough to text Olivia about missing her touch, to tell her I made you feel like a project. Those messages started before the accident, Ethan." His face crumpled. "I felt inadequate. You're so strong. So you chose someone who would keep you weak, someone who would medicate you just enough to make you need her." I shook my head. "You wanted to be rescued, not partnered. And I can't compete with that. I had already contacted a divorce lawyer. My father's attorneys were protecting the Santoro assets." Patricia screamed after me as I walked out with my suitcase. "Family is family, Ava. You can't just leave." But I could, and I did. 6 months later, I was in my new corner office overlooking the Chicago River. My father had given me control of a new division focusing on accessible, sustainable design. Ironic, given how I'd learned about home care. I lived in a renovated loft in the West Loop. All mine. No trace of Patricia's tasteless decor or Olivia's cloying perfume. Just clean lines and the piece of a space I'd claimed for myself. The divorce was clean. Ethan couldn't fight it, not with his reputation in tatters. Olivia had moved to a small town in Wisconsin, working at a clinic where no one knew her past. Patricia's social media went silent, her presence in Chicago's social circles a ghost of what it was. I started therapy, real therapy. I learned that strength wasn't about never being hurt. It was about choosing your response when you are. I made new friends, started casually seeing a gallery owner who made me laugh and treated me like an equal. One evening, my phone buzzed. Patricia's name. I opened the message. "Ava, you shouldn't have done this. No matter what, family is family." I stared at that word, family. She'd always used it as a weapon. Family means you tolerate disrespect. Family means you ignore betrayal. I typed back, "You're right. I kept the parts that weren't toxic." Then I blocked the number. Walking out into the autumn air, I felt the wind off the lake on my face. Somewhere across the city, Ethan was trying to rebuild. Olivia was learning that manipulation has a shelf life. Patricia was discovering that social climbing ends when you run out of people to step on. But I was here, whole, standing in a life built on my own terms. I thought about that phrase one last time. I only touch where I need to. I smiled at the memory, finally seeing the dark humor in it. The only person who gets to touch what needs touching in my life now is me. And that felt like the most honest truth I'd ever spoken.